Since ancient times, many people have believed that men are the strong sex, while women are the weaker sex. This is true physically, as men's muscle strength can be many times greater than that of women. Heaven gave them strength to protect those who are weaker, but not everyone uses this gift rightly. Some exploit it to become bullies, harassers, and even rapists. No threat comes without leaving pain behind, and when the last drop overflows, when people are pushed to their limits, the Confucian saying, "Human nature is fundamentally good," no longer holds true. Hello again, it's me. And today I'm going to tell you the story of a living example of what I just mentioned above, and the tragic consequences when the weak are oppressed to the extreme. The story begins on April 27, 2010, during the lunch break of a group of workers in Waxing County, China. After a tense and exhausting morning shift, everyone was very hungry and just wanted to have a full meal and take a short nap before returning to work in the afternoon. However, contrary to their expectations, no lunch was served. The entire kitchen at the worksite was empty, and the only cook there, Mr. Lu Ziyun, had already left. One of the workers, very frustrated from hunger, went straight to Mr. Ziyun's house to call him. The first time he knocked, no one answered. The second and third times were the same. Feeling that something was wrong, the worker broke down the door and rushed inside. The lights were still on, and there were no signs of theft or struggle, but no one was home. So he thought the old man had gone somewhere and forgot to turn off the lights. Then he returned to the worksite, still annoyed. Here's the English translation with the Chinese-style pinyin for the name. Mr. Lu Ziyun is currently 64 years old. He has been divorced for more than 20 years and has lived a solitary life since then. He rarely communicates with outsiders and only interacts with family members. Before taking the job as a cook at the construction site, he was almost unemployed, simply because no one was willing to hire someone at his advanced age. Therefore, he had almost no reason to quit his current job, especially since he had been working there for less than a month. Because he had little contact with the villagers, almost no one noticed when Mr. Ziyun went missing. It wasn't until a few days later that someone reported Ziyun's disappearance to his older brother, Mr. Lu. Immediately, Mr. Lu went all over the village searching for his elder brother. He went to the construction site to ask around, but no one had any useful information. Then, Mr. Lu visited the places his brother used to go to in his free time, but still came up empty-handed, with no other choice. That afternoon, the younger brother went to the police station to report the disappearance, but they showed little interest. It was the police's indifference that led to a tragic event they would likely regret for life. On April 29th, about 2 days later, a villager came looking for Mr. Liu with an urgent matter. However, similar to the older brother's case, Mr. Liu's house had the lights on and showed no signs of theft or struggle. But no one was there. Some family members also called him, but the phone was quickly hung up on the other end. This was very strange. Mr. Liu was originally an outgoing person who liked to communicate and especially always answered calls from family members. After the mysterious disappearance of the two brothers, the Liu family reported to the police. It was only then that they realized the seriousness of the situation and began to take the matter more seriously. When Ziyun went missing, the police simply hypothesized that he had left the village to seek work elsewhere. But when even his younger brother, Mr. Lu, also disappeared, it became a different story altogether due to insufficient search forces. They mobilized assistance from neighboring counties and established an investigation team on July 5th. As mentioned earlier, Ziyun had lived alone for 20 years and rarely interacted with those around him. In contrast, Mr. Liu had a stable job and was an honest farmer. Additionally, he did some side jobs, cooperating with villagers to earn extra income. Therefore, the hypothesis that he followed his older brother to seek money was unreasonable, because Mr. Liu had many connections and frequently used his phone. Tracking him became the top priority. It was also possible that the two disappearances were linked, The police began the investigation by checking Mr. Liu's call history and transactions. Everything was normal except for 2 consecutive calls to a woman named Su Hong on the exact day he went missing. Prior to this, the victim rarely contacted this woman, so she became the main suspect in the investigation. The police traced the call records to a small clinic located in Huaxing County. Su Hong was 40 years old at that time. She had divorced her husband 9 years earlier and then returned to her hometown to open the clinic. She lived with 4 children, 3 of whom were adopted. The police interrogated the suspect about the calls made that day and received the following answer. She had borrowed money from both Mr. Liu and Zhu Yun to pay for her child's medical treatment. The calls were simply to ask Mr. Liu to come and repay the debt, and after he left, she did not hear any news about him. Comparing Hong's statement with those of the villagers, the police confirmed this was true and temporarily removed her from the list of suspects. The investigation quickly hit a dead end after they searched throughout the county but found no trace, not even Mr. Liu's motorcycle. The hypothesis that they had gone together to another place to live became more plausible than ever. Then, 3 days later, a new lead came to them. Mr. Liu's younger sister received a message from the victim's own phone. The content of the message was as follows. "The truth is that I accidentally killed Zhu Yun. I told my elder brother that I would go to Shandong to look for his son. But for some reason, he insisted on stopping me. At that time, both of us were drunk, which led to a fight. I might have pushed Zhu Yun too hard, causing him to hit his head on the door. When I checked, his pulse had stopped. I was very scared. So I hid the body and fled after receiving this message." The police immediately rushed to the brothers' home to verify. They thoroughly inspected Mr. Liu's residence but found no traces of blood on the door or Zhu Yun's fingerprints. On the other hand, the police also discovered 3,000 renminbi. This was illogical. If the culprit truly intended to flee, they wouldn't leave behind such a large sum of money. Moreover, Mr. Liu had a low level of education. His other messages often contained many spelling mistakes and were curt. But in this message, it was different. The writing style and punctuation were perfect, without a single error. The police concluded that Mr. Liu could not have composed this message, since the message was sent shortly after the police interrogated Su Hong. This woman became even more suspicious when one of the Liu family members recounted a conversation at a drinking gathering with Mr. Liu. He said, "If I die, the one who killed me is Su Hong." However, this was just the rambling of a drunken man, and not enough evidence to accuse the suspect. On May 19th, the police returned to Su Hong's house to conduct a further investigation. She cooperated well and answered all questions calmly. But when asked if her house had a basement, she hesitated slightly and insisted that it did not. This was strange because almost every house here had a cellar to store food or wine during the winter, especially in a place with such harsh winters like Heilongjiang province. The police investigated the backyard of the house and discovered a hidden cellar covered by a thick layer of grass. At this point, the investigation team seemed to be on the right track. The cellar had not been used for many years. Just standing at the entrance, one could see many plastic bags, clothes, and even human feces inside. As soon as the police discovered this secret, Su Hong began to panic and tried to prevent the police from uncovering the terrible secret at the bottom of the cellar. However, her efforts were in vain. The inspectors continued their work despite her desperate attempts to stop them. The police had to wear gas masks to continue their investigation because a strong, foul odor was emanating from below. After some searching, they found 2 bodies hidden carefully, heavily decomposed. However, it was not difficult to identify that they were Zhu Yun and Mr. Liu Hong was arrested shortly afterward. The culprit of the case was revealed to everyone in the village. Everyone was shocked because they believed Hong was a gentle woman who would never harm anyone. When the evidence became overwhelmingly clear, Hong could no longer deny it. She quickly confessed honestly. perhaps hoping to receive leniency from the law. Since borrowing money from Zhu Yun and Mr. Liu, the two men frequently came to the clinic under the pretext of collecting debts. However, in reality, they only wanted to abuse Su Hong. She had to comply with their disgusting demands if she wanted to have her debts forgiven. From that point on, she felt humiliated. Both her body and mind deteriorated day by day. This woman desperately sought a way out for herself. Fortunately, after a period of abuse, Zhu Yun finally found the love of his life after more than 20 years and wanted to marry her. So he stopped those actions, on the condition that Hong repaid all her debts. On the day Zhu Yun went missing, he actually went to Su Hong's house to collect the money he had lent. However, Hong had a different scheme. She crushed 16 small pills and put them into 2 capsules, then convinced the victims to take them by telling them they were Viagra, a medicine for erectile dysfunction. She waited until the victims fell asleep, then strangled them to death with a rope and threw their bodies into the basement. 3 days later, she did the same to Mr. Liu. It seemed the case had come to a close, but the story did not end there. Although the 2 bodies had been recovered, a strong stench still emanated from the basement. The smell was not just from human waste, but also from a complete human skeleton. With no skin left on it, the autopsy results concluded that the body belonged to a woman named Li Ziying, the sister-in-law of Su Hong. The interrogation continued for 2 more days. Under the intense pressure from the police, the perpetrator finally confessed the truth behind her sister-in-law's death. Another murder case that had never been investigated before. Su Hong was born in 1970 in Ning'an County. She once worked as an intern at Second People's Hospital, but soon resigned to pursue her dream of owning a private clinic. About 4 years later, Hong married her boyfriend, whom she had met during high school. This decision was heavily criticized by members of her family. As a result, she gave up her career to live with her husband's family, marking the biggest turning point in her life. Right after getting married, her husband immediately had an affair with another woman. Su Hong was very angry and demanded a divorce. Her father tried to persuade Hong to stay, explaining that in rural areas, divorce would badly affect the reputation of both the woman and her family. Hong tried to endure, hoping that the upcoming child would change her husband. Sadly, he abandoned all responsibilities of raising the child and left it all to his wife while continuing his affair. After their child was 9 months old, the husband went far away to work and barely sent any money back to support the family. She bore the burden alone, raising the child, caring for elderly parents, and looking after the young grandchild. Running the clinic alone was not enough. She also had to take on farming, household chores, and other heavy tasks usually done by men in the village. In 2001, Hong learned that her husband had an affair with another woman and had even gotten her pregnant. She decided to leave her old family behind and start a new life. This was the last straw. She no longer cared about society's judgment or the criticism from others. Hong was determined to file for divorce and return to live a quiet life in her hometown. When returning home, fate still did not spare Hong. Moreover, things became much worse than before. Her younger sister married a man named Bang Dao. After many years of marriage, they had a quarrel that forced the wife to flee to her sister's house. The next morning, Bang Dao went to Hong's house. She quickly hid her younger sister and persuaded her husband to leave. Bang Dao became extremely aggressive, even threatening to kill his wife's child if he couldn't get her back. The argument escalated into a violent confrontation, prompting Hong to grab a nearby beer bottle and strike the bully on the head. Blood began to trickle down his fingers from the wound. His legs buckled to the floor, and he convulsed for 10 minutes before finally dying. This was the first time Hong had killed someone. In a panic, Hong called the person she trusted most, her father, and told him everything. He did not blame Hong, but instead helped her hide the body. He took the body near the tractor and cremated it. What happened afterward, Hong did not know. Her parents had both passed away in 2006 and 2008 respectively, so the location of the body was never found. to cover up Bang Dao's death. Hong also sent messages to his relatives saying that he had gone away and would return once he had established a stable career. No one suspected this story until the case of the two brothers mentioned above was exposed. In November 2005, Li Zhuiying, Hong's sister-in-law, wanted to borrow 10,000 renminbi from Hong. But Hong refused, which made Zhuiying very angry. After telling her mother about this, Hong also found out that Zhuiying had an affair. This enraged her because her sister-in-law had brought shame to the family. The perpetrator waited until the victim fell into a deep sleep, then strangled her to death and hid the body in the basement. To cover up the crime, she used exactly the same method as in the first case and was not exposed. This was the second time Hong had committed murder. If the first time was impulsive, she acted when the demon had taken over her mind. Some people might sympathize with Hong, believing she acted in self-defense. But the second time was different. It was not a sudden impulse, but the result of a carefully planned scheme, perhaps after escaping punishment for the first murder. She no longer recognized the severity of taking a life and acted without any hesitation. After the story was made public by the media, Hong felt she could no longer live under the scrutiny and harsh judgment of society, who labeled her as a murderer. She accepted the death sentence without any defense. Hong felt no remorse for her actions, but she did wonder one thing: why do men always treat me so badly? In July 2011, Hong's trial began. She received the death sentence, exactly as she had wished. The only thing she regretted was not being able to stay to care for her children. In May 2012, Su Han was officially executed. From my perspective, Hong's story is both pitiable and infuriating. It is pitiable because she endured much oppression from her own family and those around her, people who should have been her support, but instead became the cause that pushed her to the depths of society, forcing an originally kind-hearted person to become cruel just to survive. However, Hong's crime is unforgivable. Among thousands of ways to handle problems, she chose to commit murder, and this is completely wrong. She took away the father, mother, and children of another family, stole their lives, and left behind deep sorrow and regret for their relatives and loved ones. Today's video ends here. Thank you all for watching until the very end. See you in the next videos. Goodbye.